Gen X grew up on late-night warnings.
It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?
Scared, straight.
This is your brain. This is drugs. This is your brain on drugs. Any questions?
And were inspired by movies that defined a generation.
We were all pretty bizarre. Some of us are just better at hiding it, that's all.
Hey, Doc, we better back up. We don't have enough road to get up to 88.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
I feel the need for speed.
We found our attitude in comedy.
I'm Gumby, damn it.
You see that sign?
No shirt, no shoes,
No dice.
Right. Learn it. Know it. Live it.
And our identity in pop culture.
I want my MTV!
I want my MTV.
I want my MTV.
Who's talking about, Willis?
Keep your feet in the ground and keep reaching for the stars.
This is Gen X Men with Bill Rowland and Gary Dollarhide.
Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
All right, welcome in episode number 16 here on Gen X Men, Bill Rowland along with Gary Dollarhide. Hey, before we get into our main thing, I just remember by saying episode 16, I wanted to ask you the last time. When we do stuff on like Spotify and everything else, it asks you for the season and the episode number. How many episodes before we roll to season 2?
Good question.
That's my question. I meant to ask you last week, and I was like, okay. Every time I upload to Spotify, it says, season. I do one and an episode, and it hasn't been that many. But now I'm like, do we just do like a year and our season is 52? I'm like, I didn't know. I was like, I don't know. Season 2. I don't know.
Are we seasonal or are we like 7-Eleven always there?
I don't know.
I don't know. My first gut instinct when you said was like, well, we'll go to 25 and then that's a season.
All right.
That's like half a year, right?
That seems fair. Sure.
So
I didn't know. I'm like, I should ask Gary when he wants the season to be up. I don't know if do we take a hiatus for the season? I don't think so, but
the bigger question is, are we renewed for season 2?
Well, I mean, that's true too. That's a very good point. I'd say
who's in charge of that?
Most people probably say no. So anyway, hey, welcome in everybody. Hope you had a good New Year. I know we did an episode last week, but right on New Year's Day actually. But hope that your New Year's off to a good start. We got a couple things we want to get into today as far as Gen X stuff goes, and I think it tags along, Gary, with a lot of what people would have been doing the last couple of weeks, especially when you were younger, and that's going on road trips. Mm-hmm. The idea for this episode was originally I was driving back from New York last night from the Bronx because as we record this on Thursday morning, Mason had played at Fordham Wednesday night. The thought was once I got out of New York, just using my cell phone, throw it up on the dash, hit record. You and I would just record the episode while I'm driving back home, mainly to keep me occupied because I was going to be bored out of my mind. Now I found a couple of things to occupy myself with podcasts and other stuff. So it was fine. I ended up getting home in a little over 4 hours. Don't do the math on that. Yes, I was speeding the entire time.
But there was no traffic probably.
Well, once I got out of the city, once I got out of the city, it was fine. And then I was on like the Jersey Turnpike. I guess I got to the Turnpike a little bit before 10. And that first section of the Jersey Turnpike was awful. Like I'm driving in the left lane because I'm trying to go fast because I'm trying to get home. And like you would just all of a sudden come up right behind somebody and they're going like 50. I'm not that's an exaggeration, like literally 50. So brake light. You see the people behind you realize, oh, this lane's slowing down. So they get over to the center lane and zip by you and you're stuck for like 15, 20 seconds, maybe even longer of just being like, I can't get over. And this guy's just like, doo-doo-doo, doo-doo-doo. It was, and it's 65 on the Turnpike. What are you doing?
I can't tell you the number of times it's even happened up here. And what's even worse is they'll have Massachusetts license plates.
Of course.
They're in the left lane doing 10 below the speed limit and like have no concept when cars whip up behind them, rip into the right lane, and then rip back in front of them, keep going. Right. It's like, that's not a clue to you that maybe you should get out of the left lane so
then you're the
traffic can go.
Yeah,
right?
you're the jerk for going around them. Yeah.
But we actually have signs. I'm sure other places do. It says, left lane for passing only.
Yes.
Don't camp out over there. It's not your place.
I've seen that, but if I'm driving 70, 75, I'm not going to keep going back to the center lane and then back. I'm just going to stay in the left lane because I'm like, well, there's a car up ahead. I'll pass it eventually. I'll get there at some point. But yeah, so that was brutal. I was very upset about that because I'm like, I don't care if you want to drive 50. Just don't do it in the left lane. Just get on over. You're not going to bother anybody.
Go.
So, yeah. So, I mean, it was fine. Once I got maybe 20, 30 miles down the Jersey Turnpike, then it was smooth sailing the rest of the way. Again, it's a Wednesday night on 95. There's nothing going on. So, it was pretty easy. Having
made the drive from D.C. to Maine numerous times, and then also point south, the D.C. to about Hartford, Connecticut, you just want to claw your eyes out. I just never liked it. It was necessary at times. Just driving through the Northeast corridor is there's just no redeeming quality to it.
No, it's awful. And it's really expensive now. I think to go end to end on the Jersey Turnpike was like $20.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, maybe a little more than that. It sucked. Anyway, we sympathized with that DC to Maine drive that you made because this kind of leads into talking about road trips. When I was a kid, that was one of the main routes. My dad grew up in Western Pennsylvania. That wasn't a bad trip. It's about 4 hours. He's about 45 minutes south of Pittsburgh. And Uniontown would be like the closest, biggest city to where he lived. And he didn't live in Uniontown. So if we went there, that wasn't bad. 4 hours in a car. It's not fun, but it wasn't bad. When you tried to go to Maine, and again, my sister, my mom, other family people will back this up. My dad, God bless him. This is where I got this from my dad. You get in the car, you go, right? You're not, this is a sightseeing trip. We're going from point A to point B. And I'm not kidding, Gary. When we would have to stop for gas, that was the time, like everybody does. Hey, did you use the restroom? Did you go to the bathroom before we leave on the trip? And we would leave at like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. My dad was one of these people that worked swing shifts. So he was used to being from like midnight to 8 a.m. That was one of the shifts that he would work. He worked for the railroad for 30 some years. Sometimes he'd work 4 p.m. to midnight. Other times it'd be midnight to 8. Then he'd have a normal day where he'd work 8 to 4. But whatever, he was used to being up. So we'd leave at like 3 in the morning because, like you said, you want to get through all that nonsense of Baltimore, Philly, New York, everything else. So if you left about that time, you pretty much be through all that stuff. You better have gone to the bathroom before you got in the car. He was not going to stop for that. And then when you stop for gas, the only amount of time that you had to then, if you need to go to the bathroom there or grab a snack, which you very rarely did back in the day, my parents packed everything. So if you're thirsty, here's a water. If you're hungry, here's some grapes, whatever it would be. I don't know. He would pump the gas, and as soon as that thing clicked and it was done or whatever it was, he's back in the car. You better be in the car. I'm not kidding, Gary. There were times I can remember being 8 years old where he had pulled away from the gas pump and is like slowly crawling down the ramp to get back on 95. And I'm like running from the gas station to catch up with the car. I'm like, what is going on? He wasted no time in doing that. I don't know if your road trip experience was the same, but no time wasted. None.
So far, I wish ours had been like that. So our big trip from Central Virginia to both of my grandparents' houses in the Triad of North Carolina, 250 miles. Now, for whatever it was reason back then, we could leave, and it was always an 8 to 10 hour trek.
For 250 miles?
For 250 miles.
How's that possible? I did 280. I did over 280 last night in 4 hours.
Because we would have to stop places. There was the outlets in Burlington. There was this. There was that. Maybe not 8 to 10, but it wasn't as efficient as your situation. We were always stopping. We need to look here, look there. And I remember as a kid dreading that. just going, oh my goodness. And then, you know, talk about kid difference. I'd fall asleep in the back well of the floorboard behind the front seat, especially after my sister was born. But yeah, it would take forever. And then once I started driving, went down there a few times, you know, I'm getting it done in like 3 hours. Same thing. Like we're in the car nonstop, hammer down, and get there in 3.5 hours. So it was always funny to hear what you went through as a kid on those road trips.
Oh,
And for us, it was just always a day-long adventure to get home. Driving highway, have to stop here, have to stop there. My parents had their places to stop. So
yeah, no, this was because, again, my dad, we didn't have a lot of money. I mean, I grew up and we had one car for a number of years. I mean, I can remember having to get up if my dad worked the 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. shift and my mom needed the car. We'd all have to load up in the car, drive him to work, and then she'd have the car for the day if she had to take us somewhere. And then we'd have to go back and pick him up at 4 o'clock. I can remember doing that a number of times when we were growing up. So we didn't have a lot of money. So my dad was not going to be like, oh, you know, now maybe, okay, well, it's 12 hours, 10 hours to Maine. We'll just split it up. Maybe we'll do 5 one day, 5 the next. No, we weren't spending money on a hotel. So you better, you know, get in the car and go. And did your parents split the driving?
no, not at all. My dad was the driver
drove the whole time. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Same thing. It didn't matter if my dad was tired. He was going to drive, and that was it. Now, I will say, because when I was young, my dad was a smoker. So that kind of sucked because you'd be in the back seat. And if it was like, if you're going up there for Thanksgiving or Christmas, which was what we did a lot of times, you'd go for the Thanksgiving holiday to Maine, or you go up there for Christmas. So it's cold outside. So he'd either not crank the window, and then you're coughing like crazy because you're just like, oh my gosh, it's like a scene from Cheech and Chong inside of our car, except it's cigarette smoke and not marijuana smoke. Or he'd crack the window, and now you're in the back just like, oh, jeez, it's like 20 degrees. You're driving 65 and the windows. It was brutal.
Wow.
But I'm not the only kid that had that experience, I'm sure.
You didn't have the little triangle window in the front where you could hold the cigarette out and blow smoke toward the triangle window?
I remember having those in the back.
Okay.
I mean, I remember the ones in the front because I think the 65 Mustang I drove in high school and college, I think, had one of those. But I think we had the smaller ones I don't remember what kind of car we were driving at that point. I know at one point we had a station wagon. We had a green Plymouth Duster at one point. But yeah, I mean, that was just the reality of it. You just, you know, you just have to suffer.
Never had to deal with the smoking part, but temperature control is always based on what my mother wanted, not my father as the driver.
Right.
Radio, they weren't music people, so I didn't, at least prior to a certain age, don't remember worrying about the radio, what was said.
Okay.
You know, there's conversation. Like me, like you, Walkman, everything came along later, and hey, I got my headphones on. I've tuned you guys out if I'm going to sit back here.
Right.
But what I do remember is like going to Florida a couple times, and you said it. Here's the cooler. Here's the water. Here's the bologna and cheese sandwiches, because we're not stopping to spend money at restaurants. You know, just pull off at the state welcome stations and take an hour and have some sandwiches. So
yeah, I mean, we wouldn't necessarily pull over to like the you know, where we would go to the rest stops or whatever to eat. But yeah, I mean, unless you were stopping for gas, you just ate in the car. You didn't even stop to do that. I mean, that's just what it was. It was like, oh, I can remember for some reason grapes were always on the trip. I don't know why. Maybe they were easier to pack. I have no idea. I'd have to ask my mom why it was always grapes. I don't remember.
Yeah, easy to pack. You can pass them around. They're not messy like chips. So I
that's
can
true.
sort of see those type things. And it's healthy. So.
Sure. I guess so. Now, here's the question. Once you got to your destination, and I'll use Maine for mine because when we would go to my grandparents' house in Pennsylvania, there weren't that many of them. Now, again, they had the same kind of setup, just one bathroom, which when I grew up, that's what we had. We only had one bathroom in our entire house. Yep. So I'll go the other way. When my cousins would come down with my grandmother. So my mom has a younger sister and a younger brother. Her younger brother had cerebral palsy growing up. So he lived with my grandmother and still lives now with my aunt and uncle there in Maine. So he would always be with them, even, as he got older, because he would live with my grandmother. So they would come down, say Christmas. So there's my mom's sister who got married. Okay. So my aunt and uncle there, they had 3 kids. Travis, one of the 3 kids. Travis, I went to Mason with us. He came down from Maine. He was the youngest of 3. So there's 5 of them. And then my grandmother, and then my uncle again, who had cerebral palsy and again lived with them. So he would come down. So that's 7. They would travel with 7 somehow in a car and come to
sedan or wagon. That's the question.
It was a station wagon, I'm sure, because I'll get to it. So 7 of them would come down, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have 4. My mom and dad. I have an older sister, and myself. That's 11 people in a house with 1 bathroom.
One bathroom.
1 bathroom. And you know what? Never even thought that this was weird. Never even thought, like, how are we going to pull this off? Now, I can't imagine trying to think about that now. But the funny thing was, like, we didn't have, obviously 1 bedroom. You've been to my mom's house. I don't know how much you remember it, but there were 3 bedrooms.
Mm-hmm.
So my mom and dad would obviously stay in their bedroom. My aunt and uncle would get my sister's room because it had, I think my sister had a double or a queen size bed at the time. And then there was my bedroom. So my grandmother would sleep in that bedroom. And then we had it ended up being my room years later in the basement, but the basement was only halfway finished. And it's a tiny basement. So that doesn't, people are thinking giant basements. No, it was very small. And so my uncle would take a cot and he would be downstairs.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of us, the 5 kids, slept on the living room floor, just in sleeping bags. But you know what that meant? Again, my dad's working the entire time. So if my dad got a call at 10 o'clock at night, because that's what they would do, they would call from the railroad and say, okay, do you want this shift from midnight to 8? They'd call. My dad would say yes. So for the next hour, my dad's just up and around getting ready to go to work. We're all just crashed out on the floor. Maybe they've let us stay up and watch TV. Or if he had to get up and work, if they called him at 6 a.m., well, we're all asleep. He's drinking his coffee and he would sit right on the couch and we'd all be laying on the floor and he's just sitting there drinking his coffee before he went to work and we're all just crashed out. Never thought anything of it. Today, people stay in hotels just like, oh, I don't want to make my kids sleep on the floor, whatever it is. Make them sleep on the floor. It's good for them.
Yeah, well, similar, no one really came to visit us because we were up in Virginia. We were the outliers. And there's also the age situation where, the time I remember, my parents, we're talking they were in their mid to late 20s. So all my aunts and uncles hadn't started families, had just moved out on their own. So you didn't have this influx of family and cousins coming in.
Right.
But when we would go to, say, my grandparents' house, my mother's parents, it was a technically 3-bedroom little house. So grandparents were in one room, my parents were in another, and my aunt, who was just a few years older than me, had her own bedroom. So that was all the beds. I always had to sleep on the floor. Right. But it was never a thought of that's inconvenient. We don't want to do that. It was just, hey, you're sleeping on the floor.
Right.
And so when you tell me that story of kids, because that's whatever it is, the mentality back then was this is what we have to do right now. Right. We have 11 people. We spread it out. We find some place to sleep and that's okay. But, something changed in society. Like you said, well, we need to get a bigger house. So when people come visit and we have all these extra live the way you do 99% of the time. And if it changes, i.e. family comes with all the kids, let's make it a party. It'll be okay. We can get by with 1 bathroom and kids sleeping on the floor.
Right. And my parents' house was tiny. So, I can remember there's 7 years between me and Travis, who was the youngest.
Mm-hmm.
And then his older brother I think, is 4 years older than me. So they had 11 years between them. My Travis's dad is not his oldest cousin's dad. That was a whole family scandal too. But anyway, we don't have to go into that. Yeah.
It's mean.
Yeah. So I can remember him and the middle of the three kids, Travis and his next older brother were only a few years apart. So they would fight like literally all the time. Like it was just you're kids, when you're like 6 and 8 or whatever age they were, they would fight. Well, what are you going to do? You're all stuck in the house. You can't do anything. So they try to punish them by putting them in different rooms, but we didn't have that many rooms to do. I mean, it was crazy. I remember one year, and this was Christmas, and Travis and the middle of the three, his older brother, got into a fight. I don't remember what it was about. Travis was maybe 4 or 5. I mean, he was still young. Like a day later, we've done Christmas presents, everything else, and one of the presents Travis got was like this drum set. So it had the little plastic drum, and it had cymbals and other stuff. And I remember his brother was sitting there. I can still see it. Sitting there in basically what was our dining room / the room that you walked into the house. Like we didn't have like a foyer and everything else. You walked right in. You were in the room where we had our kitchen table, or not kitchen table, but dining room table where everybody ate. But anyway, so he's sitting there next to the banister because there were stairs that went down to the basement right behind him. He's sitting there playing with something, and Travis walked up behind him, cymbals in his hands, and I mean clapped across, like right over top of his ear. I mean, like just went smash, and then dropped the cymbals and walked away. And it was, I mean, his brother started screaming. I was sitting there. I was like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. This is amazing. This is unbelievable. But you couldn't separate because where were you going to put them? There's nowhere to go.
Well,
so
you reminded me of a story where I lived. There was a family across the street. I was same age friends with the youngest son. There was 3 boys, and then obviously there's 2 older ones, and they had a daughter. And the middle son and the older son, same thing, always fighting, always cats and dogs. And I remember their father, he worked night shift. And of course, we're over there in the afternoon. He's not up yet, but I guess he had heard enough during the day while he was sleeping. Obviously, this was in the summer.
Right.
And they were fighting, going after it. And he was that old school father who took them out back and tied them to 2 trees. Literally. Like, I mean, not full body, but enough that you're just going to sit here for now because I'm done hearing you in the house.
Yeah.
And, that sticks in my head of if that happened today, Child Protective Services would be. But he did, tied him up to the tree, said, sit out here. This is your time out. He was done.
That's so funny.
But I remember there was trees in your yard. I was like, that was going to be the option at your house. Parents' house. Like, just go tie them to the trees out back by the railroad.
A little cold in the wintertime, but yeah, you probably could have. But yeah, I mean, like all of that stuff. And again, you never thought anything of it as far as like, this is weird, this is different, this is, all that stuff. Now, I'm going to ask you what your worst road trip experience was. I will give you mine real quick.
Yeah.
So everybody had come down. This is before Travis and his older brother, the middle one, had been born. So there's not as many. But my grandmother and my uncle, again, with the cerebral palsy, had come down with my other aunt and uncle, the oldest of the cousins. So there were 5 of them. My sister and I, this is in the summertime, my sister and I went back with them to Maine. So they'd come down to visit. We were going back up to Maine with them to spend, we'd do that every once in a while, spend a couple weeks in the summer, let my mom and dad have a break from us or whatever. So we're driving back. Again, this is a station wagon. There's 3 people in the front seat. It was a bucket seat, right? And then 4 of us in the back seat. Well, you get squirmy because you're kids.
Oh, yeah.
So I must have got squirmy. I'm the youngest of the three kids. There's my older cousin, my sister, and then me. We were the only ones. So I must have got a little bit too squirmy. They literally moved me up and like the luggage is in the back of the station wagon. It's packed. There's just a little bit of an edge at the top of the seat in the back of the station wagon, and then into the, what would be the trunk, except it's not really a trunk. You know what I'm talking about, the storage area.
Yeah, cargo area. Yep.
Yeah. I had to lay on top of that. For like, that's where they're like, no, you quit moving. And they're just like, lay up there. So they literally moved me at no seatbelt, no car seat. I was probably 5 or 6, and I'm just laying there on the luggage. Well, we get to, and funny, the Jersey Turnpike comes up again. We get to the Jersey Turnpike. It's pouring down rain. For whatever reason, my uncle's driving. They get a flat tire. And I don't know if the rules are different now. I don't exactly know what it was. But again, this is in the 70s. There are no car phones. There's no way to get in touch with, just call AAA. You're on the side of the road.
You fixed it. Or you didn't.
No, here's the thing.
Oh.
He didn't have a spare tire in the car.
Oh.
So, yeah, weird. So he gets out and walks to the next exit, which fortunately, I guess, was only a couple miles up the road. But still, he had to walk to find somebody to then call AAA to come get us. Well, then AAA shows up, and we're all like, yay! Because I can remember seeing there, and my grandmother, to try to keep us entertained, was like, here, watch the raindrop. Pick a raindrop. See which one's going to get across the window first. Like, that was we're gambling on, raindrop races or whatever. God bless her for figuring out how to keep us entertained doing that. But so we get back. I know. We're just like, finally, okay, AAA's here. Well, apparently there was a rule. I don't know if it's a New Jersey rule. I don't know if it's the same. I don't know. People in Jersey would know this. You couldn't do any service on the side of the road. You had to get to the next exit. So what he could have done, had he known this, he probably would have done it. He had to literally drive like 5-10 miles an hour because you're on a flat tire to get off the turnpike. Well, then once we got there, the guy from AAA was just like, all right, here's your tire. Like he had the spare, took it off and remounted it. But then he was like, gave it to my uncle. He's like, all right, you got to put it back on. I'm out. It's pouring down rain. There's, 6 of us sitting in the car, and my poor uncle's out there. I mean, he was drenched. He was livid. But, I mean, that was the worst I had to ride on the top and the back. I'm the youngest. I didn't have a choice. Then we get the flat tire. That took another couple hours. I mean, that was brutal. Just an awful trip. So what was your worst road trip experience with the family?
So here's the thing, and I'm going to be honest. I can't recall a horrible or bad experience.
Okay.
Call it luck, call it whatever. I don't, there's just nothing that stands out other than maybe one time there was traffic delays when they were doing construction on I-40 North, but nothing, no car problems, no extra family. I don't recall anything of that sort in any of those family road.
Fight with your sister?
No, we were 8 years apart.
Okay.
So, just the way the timing worked out, there was just never that, hey, we're fighting. It just the age difference worked out itself because eventually, when she would have been more proactive and she was 8, I'm 16, right? It just, the time frame never worked out where we had those situations. So,
that's good. Now, let me ask you another one before we get on. Because I'm sure there are people out there being like, why didn't you just fly? Fly to me. What are you Neanderthals? What are you doing? First time you were ever on a plane? When?
I think it was pretty sure it was spring of '94. So after college, I was 22. That was the first time on a plane.
Yep.
And that was a Value Jet. If anyone remembers that old airline, flight from DC to Atlanta. And I remember being just mind boggled because I'm sitting on the aisle seat. It was 2 and 2.
Right.
And I'm looking at the front of the plane and there was 3 pilots up there. And maybe one was just supervisor training, whatever, because it was obviously the 2 seats.
Yep.
But the third guy sat in what looked like just a plank that got folded down.
They call them the jump seats. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's sitting there the whole time, and I can see the back of him. No door, no curtain.
Yeah. Right.
I can see what's going on in the cockpit in the front. And, first time flying, it was a little bumpy. And I just remember, well, they don't look panicked. I guess I'm okay. Because that guy was just sitting there, right? And whatever they were doing, like I said, I don't know if that was like a training flight and he was just overseeing, because there's no reason to have a third. I mean, it wasn't a big plane. So I assume it's some sort of training flight. But yeah. And after that, I wanted to fly everywhere just because it was so fast and efficient.
Right.
So,
yeah. Same thing. My first few flights were with Mason. I remember I was still in school and I started doing stuff, and they flew me to Colorado. I did the Colorado game, and then the next 2 weeks later, around Christmas time, it was right before Christmas, we flew out to California. That was the trip we played Long Beach State, and I think it was USC, maybe. I don't remember what the other was. The famous Nate Langley flipping the double bird on ESPN.
Yep.
That trip.
Wait, is that the trip that GC Marcaccini didn't return from?
That is correct. That is the same trip. Yes. That is that famous trip where, again, Mason people know this. We had a player named GC Marcaccini who was from California. We had gone out. We actually had dinner at his house. His parents, he lived in Tarzana, I think it was. They had a beautiful house. His parents were loaded. Beautiful house out there. So the team all went over. This was when Paul Westhead was our coach. Team went out there, had dinner, everything. It was awesome. His parents were really, really nice. I do remember that. The house was amazing. And then we get to the airport. We're flying back. And I remember it was a red eye. So it's, 9, 10 o'clock at night. We're getting ready to board the flight to come back to DC. And we're sitting on the airport. This is before Mason would charter. So we're flying commercial. And Carl Sell, who is still alive, by the way. I don't know if you remember Carl or not. He is in his late 80s. He was an old newspaper guy before he became George Mason's sports information director. He worked for the old Washington Star. Anyway, and I laugh because I think about this story and I'm like, Carl was kind of a curmudgeon. I'm probably about the same age Carl was at that point. I don't feel like I'm a curmudgeon at this point.
So this is one of those funny things. We talk about how people looked. I remember Carl.
Yeah.
And if you said old newspaper guy, it's like you said, guy, big in the middle, gray hair, glasses, just.
That was Carl.
But here's what's funny. If you're about the same age, we're guessing, you're stylish. I see what you wear at games.
I mean, I guess.
But you look at Carl then, if he's, 50, you'd say that guy's 70 years old. We would today, right?
I know.
You look at you and go, yeah, you're in your 50s.
Right.
So that image just jumped in my head when you mentioned his name and just remembering him from the games. Like, oh my goodness, old Carl.
Yeah, Carl. Again, it was probably about our age when if he's, I think he's, like I said, I think he's 89 now. Let's just say round numbers 90. So 40 years ago would have been 1986. So yeah, he would have been late 50s probably. So yeah, a little bit older than us. But anyway, so Carl's sitting in the airport, and again, he had kind of been like, he was the one. I will always be beholden to Carl. He was the one that really got me, because long story, we'll take a little detour here. You may remember this, although I think you were not doing games with me at the time. I think Chris Jolly was doing games with us. He was writing for the school newspaper, but would do the radio. He and Matt Young, who were both newspaper guys, would do the radio with me. So we're sitting at Mason one day, getting ready to do a game, and I'm sitting there with Chris and Matt. We're all set, ready to go. I got my headphones on. We're talking about, okay, here's what we're going to do pregame, blah, 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 all this kind of stuff. I wish I had tape of those because I bet there was some spectacular game calls. Anyway, Carl comes over and literally just grabs the headphones off my ear like this, pulls them off, sets them on the table, and just goes, "Come with me." And he crooks his finger and waves. And I'm thinking, oh no, what? Yeah, exactly. What did we do? Why are we in trouble? Did Chris say something and he thinks that Chris works with us and not for the newspaper? I'm freaked out. And he just goes, Bob Gotkin was the guy who was the play-by-play You remember Bob?
Yep.
You probably remember Bob from the house down in Richmond. That's a whole nother story for a whole nother. But anyway, he's like, Bob got in a car accident. He called again, no cell phones. Bob called Press Row. There's a phone that they used to call, and that's how people would get the scores. These tickers back in the day. They would just call. You had a dedicated number. You'd pick up and go, yeah, Mason 37, Old Dominion 34, 532 to go first half. And then you hang up because that's all they wanted. So Bob called that phone and told Carl, I got a car accident. I'm not going to make it. You guys got to do something else. So Carl he had no choice. Go get the college kid. So he took the headphones off. He's like, you got to walk 10 feet that way, sit down, and you're on in 5 minutes. And I was like, what? And he goes, Gotkin's not going to make it. Go sit down and do the game. You got 5 minutes. Well, I was smart enough at the time to remember we used to record them on these little tape recorders. I was smart enough to grab the tape recorder and go down and hook it into their stuff and record the game. And we ended up, I think it was Charleston Southern. I think we ended up winning the game late. I don't remember exactly. But I remember then the next day taking the tape to the SID office and handing it to Carl and said, if you ever need somebody, that was awesome. Again, I was like, that was incredible. Handed it to him and said, I don't know if I'm any good, but here it is. And then a week later, he called me and said, you can do this. He's like, I want to, will you start doing stuff with us if I have you? And I'm like, yeah. So I did occasional game there and there. And then it was the next year. That's when they flew me. Anyway, so I will always say Carl Sell is one of the main reasons I stayed with it, because he was the first person who ever said, you're pretty good at this. So awesome. Anyway, we're sitting in the airport, back to GC Marcaccini. We're sitting in the airport. And again, I'm looking around because I didn't pay any attention when I'm on the bus because I sat near the front. I would sit right behind Carl because, again, he was kind of like, I'm going to take care of you. Just do what I do. Keep your mouth shut. Don't talk to anybody. Sit right behind me. It's good. Now, there were occasionally, if we were on a bus trip, that I'd sit behind Carl. And this is another thing. Paul Westhead was a terrible coach at Mason. I have nothing bad to say about Paul Westhead other than it didn't work, because we'd be on like a road trip going to wherever, and we'd be sitting there, and he had no reason. I was a college kid or just out of college at the time, and he'd call me up, and I'd sit with him for 45 minutes to an hour at the front of the bus, and he would just talk to me about stuff, about life, about college, what I wanted to do. He had no reason to do that. No reason at all. Great guy. So anyway, a couple of guys that I will never have anything bad to say about. So we're sitting there, and I got on the bus. I didn't pay any attention. I get to the airport. Now I'm looking around, and I see all the guys because, whatever it is. And I'm like, GC's not here. That's kind of weird. Like, what's going on? So I turned to Carl, and I said, is GC not coming back with us? Because, again, he's from California. I'm thinking maybe he's just spending the time here, like with the family. He's going to come back later or something. And Carl's reading newspaper, because that's what you did back in the day. There were no cell phones. There's nothing. So you had to kill time somehow. And he just goes, he's not coming back at all. And just kept reading. I'm like, hold on a second. What do you mean at all? Like, he's not coming back on the flight? Like, and he's like, GC's done. I'm like, what? It was crazy. We go out there, we lose. And he's like, yeah, GC's not coming back. And then years later, GC Marcaccini dated. Do you remember?
Tyra Banks.
That's right? The Mason connection to Tyra Banks. So yeah, crazy. That was a wild trip. Anyway, that was a long detour. So you don't remember controlling the radio. That's what you're talking about before when you were driving. You said your parents were music people. I don't think that I wouldn't necessarily call. So did you listen to like talk radio? Like, were they just flipping the AM channels? What were they doing? Or was it
honestly silent? It's hard for me to remember, but honestly, it was just a lot of conversation. They talk, right? But I was just in the back. And like I said, once I became of age and kind of hit the music thing, it became the Walkman, my CDs, whatever, iteration at that time I was listening to, I just put my headphones on and keep myself busy in the back listening to music. And
kind of like the kids are doing today. Yeah.
Right. But before that, Yeah, they weren't music people listening to the radio. Maybe some talk radio if it was on for news and information, but yeah, nothing particular on that front. So
See, that's why again, I know, and Carrie teases me about this all the time about the useless knowledge that I have. And a lot of it is songs because you didn't have a choice. You had to listen to what your parents were listening to. And we had an old, like when I was growing up, we had a Plymouth Duster that had an 8-track player in it. So my mom had one of these boxes, that held however many 8 tracks, maybe a dozen, and it was the same ones over and over again. You just put it in, and that's what you had to listen to. And I remember it was like, I think probably for my sister, I think like Marie Osmond was one of them. Mac Davis. Do you remember Mac Davis?
Ooh, yes.
Yeah. That was one of them.
When men had perms, it was cool back then.
That's right. It was a decent amount of country, which is probably why I don't like country music, because I'm like, I heard that all growing up. And she had, and this ties into what you're going to talk about. I remember she had, and this wasn't in the car, but this would be at home. She had the Elvis album, was it called Blue Hawaii or Blue Hawaiian or whatever it was? The album, because the album, most vinyl was black. That was the first colored vinyl. It was blue. And that's the first time I remember seeing that. That's the only thing I remember about that. But I guess we should say, I mean, he's not going to know unless he's out there. Happy birthday to Elvis today, right? January 8th as we tape this.
January 8th, 1935 with his birthday.
Ooh.
I mean, as some people would say, he might still be out there. You never know. So
that'd be pretty good. I mean, what, 91?
91, living under a federal witness protection program. So there are those that believe. So, but yeah, today's his birthday. And of course, as you see on the screen, my mom's birthday, she turned 77 today. So if I did the math right, I think we talked about this. Yeah, an icon of music and contemporary then, still relevant today in certain ways. It's probably fading a little bit, but it's hard to say when the estate's still making hundreds of $millions a year to say he's irrelevant. So
yeah, here's the question that I have, because we were talking about music a couple episodes ago about Mariah Carey and all the money that she's making off that song. And we were talking about the Beatles and how much money they still make. So I was having a conversation with somebody about this, and I can't remember who it was now, but they were saying, what would be 40 some years from now when it's the 100th anniversary of the Beatles coming to the U.S., Beatlemania. So 2063, I guess it was, because it was 1963, right? Wasn't it that when they came on the Ed McMahon, not Ed McMahon,
63 or 64?
Was it 64? It was one of the two. Yeah. When they were on the Ed Sullivan show. That 100 years from now, that will still be like, people will still be listening to Beatles records. They'll still be. And I was like, I don't know. I said, I know, even this younger generation, they're still, they're still listening to it and everything else. But how many younger generation kids are listening to Elvis? And that you're almost to that point. Again, we're not that far away from Elvis bursting onto this. I mean, it's 30 years. It's probably 1955, around that time period. How many kids are going to be listening to Elvis in 2040, 2050?
Probably not many. Still an icon. I think it's obviously going to diminish, but it's only going to be, I guess, your music aficionados of that age group that are going to be like, oh, go back and listen to Elvis, right?
Yeah.
Because similar today, I mean, how many of us go back and go, oh, not that they were singing, but like a Count Basie orchestra, or I'm failing.
Yeah.
Sinatra. How many of us, we know we may have heard, but we're not actively listening. So, and a shame, because I think there are certain artists who span the test of time. Their music is quality, even if it may not be something you normally listen to or normally like. They're the special ones. And yeah, I just think, as you said, a few more years from now, they're going to be just the bigger footnotes in music history. But in the same sense, and it may be the old guy me, I don't know from today who's going to be those icons, because we try to make everyone an icon, and it's all outlandish.
Taylor
I mean,
Swift
there's a
probably has to be the one, right?
I would think. And that's me. I'm not invested in her music. So
Right.
it's not like I've listened to the catalog and go, oh, that's good. I just know she's popular right now.
It's a great
Where will she be? Will she continue on putting out more albums of the same quality? I mean, let's look at Madonna, huge icon. And then it's just kind of like, honestly, her music career kind of stopped.
Right.
Things got weird. She's still known. She's evidently still touring, but I mean, is she getting new fans? Are people still listening to the new stuff? Or are they just remembering the old classics that she put out?
No, that's a great point. And I think, and here's the thing, I'm not going to say, look, you said it perfect that Taylor Swift is popular.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not entirely sure, and I will get pushback on this. I don't care. I don't know how talented she is.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Right.
Like I look at her stuff and I'm like, lyrically and everything else, she's about a mile wide and about an inch deep. There's not much to it. It's all the same stuff. And bless her, she's going to be a billionaire from it, because all these young kids, girls grew up with her. And now we've had this conversation. I just wonder when she gets married, when she has kids and she's no longer screaming about her ex-boyfriends,
what happens?
Well, yeah, that honestly, what happens? Because her fan base was all built on this idea of a man wronged you, and now we're going to talk about how awful he is.
Yes.
So what happens now when she's completely in love and talking about Travis Kelce's manhood and everything else?
Well, I'm sure her management is planning for that and transitioning her. But the question will be, she is a songwriter, and that's how she started. So the question is, will she be able to write? Love is usually, we've said it, love is a great subject matter of music. And there's usually either 50% it's love is bad or love is good. She's done the love is bad side. Now what can she do with the love is good side, moving forward? And she probably can do it. But it's like you said, it's inch deep, mile wide. Where's her depth? I mean, let's go back to Elvis, right? He can sing, he'll do gospel. He did Christmas. He did rock, right? I mean, he liked music across the board, didn't try to fit it into any sort of genre, and he could do it just because he loved it. I don't know if she has that, and that's, part of the, can you be an icon forever just because you're popular?
Well, yeah.
Probably close enough, but yeah.
Manufactured all the way through.
Well, that too.
I think there's no doubt about that. But yeah, I mean, talking about Elvis, obviously he died very young. Was it 1977?
Yep.
I think he passed away.
43, 42.
I mean, and again, at the end, everybody jokes about it, the fat, bloated Elvis and everything else. I wonder if he wouldn't have ended up being a joke or irrelevant or whatever it was, because I think him dying as young as he did kind of solidified people remember, especially our parents, because Elvis is not ours. Again, he died in 77. The oldest of us were 12, and he wasn't putting out album after album after album.
He wasn't a hit maker even in the 70s. So
right. So he's not ours. He's the boomers. And the way everybody has reacted to a lot of things that are boomer-ish, if you will, does he somehow find a way to stay relevant into the 80s? Because, I know a lot of my friends listened to Elvis because he was this icon and everything, and it was kind of, I don't want to say an ironic thing or whatever, because, look, I used to listen to Sinatra all the time when I was in high school and college and even after that, but I didn't do it and tell people oh, I've got my Sinatra album ready. I just listened to it. That's, I listened to the Beatles. I listened to a lot of the old stuff, again, probably from riding in the car with my parents and having to listen to what they listened to. But do you think he would have been relevant when he was mid-50s in the late 80s?
Not at all. The music business had changed. I mean, look, we were in the middle of the new wave invasion from Europe. The style had changed.
Kind of killed him, I think.
Yeah. and let's, the other obvious, he had bad management. It just, things weren't going well. I don't think they would have made that transition because it was such a stark difference from where he started, who he was, who he became. And like I said, that late 70s, early 80s music, the business, everything just changed. And I don't think he would have been able to make that switch. He may have got pushed off into country. I don't know.
Interesting.
May have been their plan at the time because he could have fit in with that group. Probably not twangy country, but that's probably where he would have ended up as a performer, still performing at that point. If I had to look at it, could
you have seen him? And I mean, neither one of us are Elvis experts, so somebody out there is probably like, "You guys are morons." It's fine. Could you have seen him doing like Sinatra did the whole duets thing? Now, Sinatra was much older when he did it, but could you have seen like some of these, artists reaching out to Elvis and being like, "Hey, come do a verse or two on my song. I'd like to do a duet with you," just because maybe they grew up listening to his music. They still saw him as an icon. Would he have fit in that category where all of a sudden he's like kind of the celebrity duet guy?
That would have been an optimum thing for his management to pursue. Look, you're still going to release albums. You're probably still going to make money because there's that core audience that has loved you since the 50s, right? So he's still going to do well there. He's not going to be a chart topper. So yeah, doing the duets, anything kind of special, probably still doing Christmas albums because we know there's money there, right? Those would have been the things that kept him relevant for much longer during that time period. I think would have been, again, if I was his manager and looking at what we need to do, this is what we need to do with you. I
mean, he's a little bit younger, although not by much, but I think of Paul McCartney, who had obviously the Beatles and then Wings, which wasn't obviously as big, but he had a few hits with Wings. And then he's doing the duets. He did a couple of duets with Michael Jackson, who was the big star, what they did, Say, and the other one off Thriller, The Girl Is Mine. I think he and Michael did that. That obviously, trivia question, that was the first single off of Thriller. Most people think it was Billie Jean. It was not. It was the McCartney-Jackson duet. So I almost think of it like that way, like that maybe Elvis, had he gotten straightened out and he wasn't in all the drugs and everything else that basically killed him, I almost look at it, they might have been ending up that way, or maybe he does do a duet, not necessarily with Michael Jackson, although I mean his daughter did marry Michael Jackson, so that's a little weird. But I can see him being that guy that like goes, "Oh yeah, I'll do this with this." I don't know. Maybe his ego wouldn't have allowed him to do it because did he do? I don't know. I'm not an Elvis guy. Did he do duets with anybody?
Not that off the top of my head that I recall. Now that you asked the question,
I'm gonna look.
But everything I mean, there's some out there. I just don't think they were the big hits, like that you can look back. But everything I know and understand, he didn't have an ego.
Okay.
Not to that extent, especially on the tail end of his career. He was all about the music, and he was charismatic and personable. He's always great with the fans. There's never those moments that you hear that he just, he was that guy, through televisions out windows or anything. He just lived in his own little world, loved the people, loved making music. And I don't think he would have had the attitude of, no, I'm not going to do that.
Okay.
Just nothing about him. Everything I know historically would have tells me that that's the way he would have been. Now he Lost and Confused, I think, would have been more appropriate because, again, the music he made that he did got turned on its head in that time frame of what am I doing here? We're talking video world. I mean, you make fun of it very similar. The Christopher Crosses of the world. Guy's a phenomenal singer, songwriter.
Yeah.
And he did have hits, but he wasn't going to be the face on the videos, which means he wasn't going to get the airplay, which in turn pushed us, right? Just everything changed in that window, and it would have been navigatable, but it just wouldn't have been the same for Elvis.
I mean, and you think about it, video would have been made for Elvis because that's how, I mean, he was the good looking guy.
Early on.
That's how, again, I think it was Ed Sullivan where they wouldn't show him from the waist down. And it's so weird, but I mean, you put yourself back in the 50s, I guess that made sense in some weird way. But you wonder if, again, he would have been mid to late 40s, so maybe it wouldn't have translated very well. But you wonder if the MTV era, if he would have found a way to be relevant because he was such a telephone guy,
Yeah. Well, like I said, it would have been a challenge for him and his management to figure out how to make it work in that time period. I mean, it very well could have been the early on Elvis, we're just putting you in, stay in Vegas, keep selling out there. Maybe,
the first residency.
Correct. I mean, it's not the limelight of, because try to imagine, we talked about 86 earlier. If Elvis is still around, still trying to do, you've got Bon Jovi with that kind of hair metal. You've got Duran Duran, the Euro pop.
Yeah.
I don't know what you do with Elvis to fit him in those, not that he has a fit in those, but where does he rank? Because again, everything changed musically.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he would have fit in then. Today, yes, right? Because we come full circle. You can now put your own music out on Spotify. You can hold these residency shows. There's so many more things you can do while not being a top 10 hit maker.
Yeah.
So if he had just made it, he could have still been 91, playing in Branson, Missouri, maybe for months at a time.
Yeah, I don't know if he would have made it all the way to 91, but and it is interesting because I remember, again, as a kid, and it's within a decade of Elvis passing away, but the Elvis imitators, as they called it. I mean, it was a huge thing, and there's still people that are out there doing, look, they're doing stuff with, I saw at the State Theater, which is a local concert venue here in Falls Church. There's a guy who does Billy Joel songs and tours, not as Billy Joel, but it's like the Billy Joel experience. And you don't see that with Elvis anymore.
Nope. It's
you don't see anybody doing that.
I think a lot of people thought it's comical. I think it worked.
It is
then.
corny.
It is corny, but for then, if you go back to that time frame, and this is why Elvis was such an icon, he broke the mold of being outlandish, if you will. Had his own jet, right?
Yeah.
He did movies. He wore the jumpsuits. He wasn't wearing, the Beatles with the skinny tie and suits and just, right? He was outlandish for the time. So of course, people latch onto that and they're, recreate it and gives them their outlet to be just as outlandish, living vicariously as Elvis. So that's, Billy Joel, good example. You can go be the Billy Joel experience, but okay, you're just a guy sitting at the piano singing, right? I mean, there's nothing more to it than that.
Right. So, I mean, and there's some, again, tribute bands, as everybody says, the State Theater has a lot of them that come through, and it's fun. There's a band called the Leg Warmers that does a lot of 80s. I mean, their whole thing is they do 80s stuff, but they're not just one band.
Okay,
they do all the hits. Yeah, they do all the hits, and they have a guy, who sings their yacht rock, and he's kind of dressed up that way. They got a guy who's dressed up as got the what do I want to say, the wristbands and everything else. He's the hard rock guy that as with all that stuff, the scarves, like
Aerosmith.
Yeah, like Aerosmith had. They have got one of those guys. I mean, they have a bunch of different looks in the band because those are the people that sing those certain songs, and it works. It's fun. I have a great time when I go see them, but they're not like just one particular Elvis or whatever. So we would also be remiss because it may be the most musically talented day in history. You got Elvis, who arguably you can make the case top 10 all time, whether you like him or not. I would put him in the top 10, and I don't own a single Elvis song, album, whatever. But David Bowie, also born, Ziggy Stardust himself, also born on this day, different year than Elvis, but has a January 8th birthday. That's a pretty good 1-2 punch as far as musical birthdays.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Very, very influential. Again, a little bit flamboyant and different for his time. Did duets, the things we talked about. Just a big, what do you say, tier B musical icon from our time period more so than say Elvis.
Yeah, he's definitely more towards Gen X because he was around longer.
Into the 80s, yeah.
But I mean, he first hit in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be interesting to see if the boomers would want to claim Bowie, who was a boomer himself.
I doubt it.
You don't think they would?
I don't think they would. I don't think they would. And not anything. The 70s were kind of that in between. I don't think the boomers would claim the 70s as much as they would early 70s, 60s. Bowie comes along through the mid to late 70s. Like it was a weird time period. We're too young for a lot of the 70s music. It was kind of the recurrents and retreads when we came along. And I think it got pushed down because of the new wave concentration. And then it makes a big comeback because, now we hear all those music, televisions, movies. We were talked about earlier, this list of 50-year songs, and you start going through them going, wow, that was released in 76. We were 5 years old, but we all know them. My son knows these songs. I mean, it's just, maybe it just took time to appreciate that late 70s. Super early 80s,
maybe
make their comeback. We were talking about, Dreamweaver, Gary Wright, not huge, but, it makes its big comeback as Wayne's World movie, right?
Yep.
That's where everyone knows it. It's also the inspiration for Nightmare on Elm Street, not musically, just the concept of the whole dream.
Right.
Is what, I can't remember who was the director on that. Anyway, so that he said it was, I'm sorry?
Wes Craven, right?
Thank you. Yeah, he said it was the inspiration. Go down the list. Eagles, Hotel California, Thin Lizzy, The Boys Are Back in Town, Kansas, Carry On Wayward Son, Blue Oyster Cult, Don't Fear the Reaper, Give Me More Cowbell. I mean, all those songs turned 50 this year.
I know.
So and for us, like I said, 5-6 years old, we didn't know anything about it. But these are now iconic songs in our playlist.
Yeah. We definitely know all those songs. Definitely have had, whether it's the movies or the TV shows or whatever it is. Yeah. I mean, they're, again, iconic. It is interesting though, to look at like Bowie in the 70s, people, again, the whole Ziggy Stardust thing and everything else. I didn't really pay attention to Bowie. Again, I was 5-6 years old then until he did was it Dancing in the Streets with Mick Jagger?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's the first, again, because of MTV, where you're like, oh, who's this guy? And then you start looking into Bowie's catalog. And you're like, all right, not bad.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty good. Again, Bowie's one of those guys that I don't own any of his albums, but I'm not going to flip the channel if I'm listening to, say, 80s on 8 on Sirius XM and a Bowie song comes on. I'm not like, oh, I'm not doing this and clicking it over. And I have some bands that I do that with, but Bowie's not one of them. It's like, oh, okay, cool. David Bowie.
Yeah. I mean, for me, Bowie will always be Under Pressure with Queen.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Little Drummer Boy with Frank Sinatra.
Was it Sinatra or was it
Cosby? Was it
Bing Crosby?
No. Bing
Crosby. I think that's right.
Double check me.
Yeah, that duet was unbelievable. I'm going to look that up just to make sure that we have it right.
Why did I think it was?
It is Bing Crosby. Yep.
Bing Crosby. Okay.
Yep.
Those stand out to me as when I hear David Bowie, those are the two songs that immediately, pop in my head and I think of him. Not so much any of his individual catalog. So
yeah.
Again, Elvis, do your duets, right? If you're still around.
Yeah, there you go. It's funny because I did look that up. He didn't have on his albums. He didn't have any duets, but he did do stuff like and when he did movies, he would do duets with people in movies. It's not really the same because that's like you did a duet because you were in Oklahoma. Not that Elvis was in Oklahoma, but you see what I'm saying. Like it was just part of the movie. It wasn't because they did it that way. So that was interesting. I didn't realize that he had never done one, but a quick search says he hadn't. Maybe. So, yeah.
Well, and that may have been management. Again, if you go in history, Colonel Tom Parker, this is what we're doing. It may not be right, but this is what we're doing, and this is how we keep you an icon. And that's probably why there weren't any duets. So, at least
Could be.
in his
I
core
mean,
years.
It is kind of interesting that in all that time, nobody was able to convince him, hey, let's team up together and do this. You know, it's kind of weird.
Yeah. Like I said, a lot of it was, I'm sure, was based on Colonel Tom Parker management, just not making good decisions. Because, you know, he had Elvis under control. That was part of the, you know, history of, you know, it wasn't until the late 60s when Elvis was out from underneath him that you started to see Elvis in the resurgence, because now he was able to make his own decisions again.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yep.
Although it's, again, they talk about bad decisions. They've made a lot of good decisions because, again, the dude's still, his estate's still raking in cash. People are still going to Graceland. Have you been there?
I've been there twice, yes. And
not impressed.
Well, yeah. I mean, the first time I went, it was just, oh, this is just kind of a big house.
It's not even that big.
No, it's not. But comparatively for the time, wrong side of town, and it was big to get the estate. You're just like, oh, but you know, it's fun. And then I can't remember who has the rights now that's running all the extra stuff that they have across the street. There's restaurants. There's the museum with personal artifacts. Yeah, it's pretty neat. I mean, it's a fun day. When we were on our RV trip, we stayed in the campground right next door. So we just walked through the gate and there we are.
There you go.
And you hear Elvis on the loudspeaker all night because they just play it over the PA system. So it was always nice to wake up in the morning. I'd step out and go, hey, there's Elvis singing.
The only thing that was really impressive to me was the racquetball courts. If you remember this, that they converted, and it just has all of his gold records hanging on the walls. And you just walk in there and you go, it's a lot of gold records. It's just like, you just forget sometimes, like hit after hit after hit after hit. It was wild.
And they've moved that across the street now.
Oh, they have? Okay.
It's museum quality. You walk in, it's dark. You walk in the room, and they're just, as far as you can see, the gold records on every wall.
Okay.
Every side. Same thing with his jumpsuits. Like they've made it a thing, and it is. You're like, oh my goodness, this is what he, you know, put out, and music wise, and how respected.
Basically a 20-year career.
Yeah,
mid 50s to mid 70s till he died. I mean, it's again, it's the same thing with, like, you look at like the hit after hit after hit that the Beatles had, you know, over and over again. You go like, wow, they were only together for like 9 years, 10 years, whatever it was. It's wild. But yeah, that was the one thing I remembered first, that it's kind of like, I mean, again, I wasn't a big Elvis guy, so I was just kind of like, okay, there's a lot of stuff here, and it's weird to see people, like when I went, it was on a trip with Mason. We were playing in the preseason NIT, I think it was, and we played at the Pyramid there in Memphis when it just opened up.
Yep. And
I went with a couple people from Mason that were older, so they were big Elvis people. But I just remember other people being there, and you get to the end, and they've got his grave, you know, with the flame, and there are people standing there crying, and I just went, "Are we really doing this, folks? Are we like really?"
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't think of a single celebrity, singer, etc., that I would cry over at their death or showing up at their gravesite. I can't think of one.
Yeah, no, I mean, I wouldn't cry. It's just, my feeling was lamenting the loss too early.
Sure,
because he's a talent. But it'd be the same thing if I went to Minneapolis to see, you know, Paisley Place and Prince. I don't even know if he's buried there. It'd be the same thing. Like, oh man, you just hate that talent was lost early, and what might have been else put out that would have been great. You just hate to see it from that standpoint.
Yeah, but you're not gonna cry about it.
Absolutely not.
You know, again, I mean, we could tell stories about when Kurt Cobain died and people were crying on college campuses, and
still don't get it.
Still don't understand that either. Yeah. All right. Do you have any final thoughts? I think we've done a little over an hour, so I think we can wrap today's episode up. It was fun talking road trips and Elvis and David Bowie and all sorts of things.
No, I was just going to say, happy birthday again to my mom.
Yes.
And
happy
then secondarily,
birthday, Mom Dollar Height.
the road trip portion, we didn't get into more of it, where it was, I think it's a Gen X thing of going on your own. But to me, road trip as a young person was always about freedom, right? Give me a tank of gas back then, a road map if needed, and no timeline to be anywhere, and just meander through wherever the road took you. And that's what, to me, road trips are all about.
Well, we can go a little bit on this. When you were putting stuff together to go on road trips with this, was there any particular one? Like, I think about it now, like our parents never, like, you would have to call when you got to wherever you were going. But if you were like in college, you think about like driving down to Myrtle Beach or something. My parents had no idea whether it was safe or not. My older half brother was stationed at Beaufort, South Carolina, right outside of Paris Island when he was a Marine. I went to visit him one summer. They had no idea. Like, you walked out of the house, you got in your car, and you drove off, and it would be hours before they would know if you got there or not.
Yeah. For their age group, travel was usually once a year, twice a year, anything recreational. Yeah. Other than that, it was always a forced situation. We have to go here. We have to go there.
Right.
Getting in a car just to go somewhere, not in their mindset. I mean, California maybe back in the 60s, but I say the East Coasters, get in your car, go right around. What's that about?
Right.
I think came more of age with us, maybe because gas was cheaper, cars were more reliable. There was a interstate highway system. I don't know. But yeah, my parents worried even when I was in my 20s, not even living with them. And where were you? We tried to call because, again, we didn't have necessarily cell phones at that point. So they were just getting the answering machine back at the house. I'm like, got in the car, drove to Southwestern Virginia because that's where the road took me.
Right.
They were just horrified. Like, what? I'm like, yeah, that's what we do. And, like I said, it's a wandering spirit. Maybe it's more so for Gen X or less. Maybe I'm the worst example, but even now I get unsettled if I don't go take a trip that has no meaning once in a while.
Right. No, that makes sense. That makes absolute sense. And again, everybody talks about, like, do I get sick of the travel going with me? I'm like, no, I don't get. People are like, I can't believe you drove up and back. I'm like, why? Like, you get in the car, you almost can clear your mind out when you just drive, especially late at night when you don't have to worry about traffic and everything else. You can just sit, and sometimes maybe people who aren't comfortable themselves don't like it, but you can just sit with your thoughts and try to figure out, like, okay, what's the next thing I need to do? What's the next thing on the agenda? What's the next thing coming up? Oh, I did want to bring up one thing, and I'm glad I thought about this before we finished. I had asked about road trips and said if people had an experience. And one of the guys who follows me on X talked about his mom. Now, we talked about our dads did all the driving.
Yeah.
His mom drove him and I guess his couple of kids, his brother or sister, whatever it was. She just has 2 pre-K kids. A dog. They drove from Satellite Beach, Florida, which I'm not sure where that is, to Sheboygan, Wisconsin.
Sheboygan.
That's a long ass drive.
It is.
VW Bug, straight through, no air conditioning, no seat belts. 2 pre-K kids, dog, and luggage. Dad was coming back from TDY and was meeting us there. That's a long drive.
It is. That's
Satellite Beach, Florida to Sheboygan, Wisconsin.
Yeah, I mean, that's a road trip right there. If you give me those details, I'm like, that's a road warrior.
Yeah.
I mean, a VW Bug, 2 kids and a dog. Yeah.
That's perfect. That's a perfect Gen X road trip.
Yeah.
I don't think we ever traveled with the dog. I don't think so.
Nope, we always left ours.
Yeah.
As a family unit. Yep. He got left at home and the neighbors fed him. So
yeah, and I can remember doing that when neighbors would go on vacation. They'd pay me $10. I'd feed the dog for the week.
Yeah.
No big deal. So anyway, all right. Well, let's get out of here again. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. Episode 16. We'll be back next week. Who knows? We'll maybe dive into some more, this song is this old, so we can feel terrible about ourselves even more as we go along. So any parting thoughts here, Mr. Dollarhide?
Nope. If you haven't taken a road trip in a while, go out and take one just to nowhere.
Absolutely. And remember, no matter where you go, there you are.
This concludes this episode of Gen X Men with Bill Rowland and Gary Dollarhite. Gen X Men is now off the air.